Hello and welcome back to another week of the DP World Tour Picks and Bets. Skylar Hoak here, joined with Tom Jacobs, doing this on a Monday this time. I know last week we caught it thin with our return, so we'll have this week and next week normalcy for us. Tom, it's good to see you despite one of the worst back nines I have ever seen. I mean, what was he, minus 1,000, right? I think was the number he got to here. I mean, that was in the bag for Otagui, and to do that, I mean, tough for Adrian.
Yeah, I think. I mean, what really sucks is that he did all his good work while I was asleep. I woke up and he was still ahead, but the odds were suggesting like this isn't going to go very well for him. And I just started watching. I was like, right, I don't want to see this anymore. And luckily, I had to leave to go and watch the marathon. But like, he just doesn't do that normally, right? Like it's not his MO. Like he's a pretty solid player. When we look at, he's had 6 54-hole leads in his career. He's won 2 of them. I guess he does. He's won 2 of them, come second 3 times. So he never goes away. But he's always been pretty good. And it was just like a complete capitulation towards the end. It was really strange. I really like Bernd Wiesberger, so like it's fun to see him back in the winner's circle. And I think it's quite a big thing to be one of those players, a bit like Chikara, be one of those players that are going to rebuild your career again after having the live debacle, right? So a huge positive for the DP World Tour that Wiesberger's back winning. But yeah, Otagui, and look, there was some element of luck, right? Like I think Wiesberger made a couple of like 25 fuzzers, like chipped in, like. Obviously, Otagui missed a couple of really small putts that cost him, but a lot went against him as well. So disheartened from a perspective of like didn't get the win when he should have done, but also just really happy that the pit kind of played out in a way that we kind of expected it to, and the chips came down. It didn't work out for us.
Yeah, I mean, absolutely. Seemed a little bit rattled after kind of what should have been probably a 4 or even a 5-stroke lead could have been with like 8 to play, turns into 3, turns into 2 really quickly, and then to lose by 3 after being up by 3 is definitely tough. And yeah, I mean, even back from his Belgian knockout days, like I always viewed him as a killer deep into the stretch. Yeah. And I mean, yes, for the amount of opportunities he's gotten, of course, some have been blundered, but overall, I mean, he has been great when getting into the mix. So, yeah, I mean, absolute solid pick. I didn't really have much outside of Zihao Jin, kind of snuck around. I felt bad about not having Jan Hanzhou on the card after he went out blitzing through the first 36 holes. But ultimately nothing there. A week under our belts, but, still a lot up in the air as we go into the Turkish Airlines Open, which also has a new course that we haven't seen. I mean, I think the Challenge Tour played it over a decade ago, was like a couple of guys that had a little bit of experience here. So first looks, I mean, for you, like kind of researching a national golf course, that you have here, I mean, based off the looks of the scorecard, I mean, it looks like the photos really well. There's some really interesting stuff. I mean, not too meaty of a scorecard, 7,300, so a little bit on the longer sides, but seems a lot of that is into the par 3s that they're playing at full distance, and the par 5s maybe being more 3-shotters, and then a couple, shorter par 4s. But based off the way that I kind of looked at it, I mean, I think the previous, blanking on the course in Turkey that they normally play at was a little bit more open. This one just seems like there's lurking danger off of the fairway, tight trees, water in play. I mean, if there is going to be 3-shot holes and longer par 3s, I mean, I do think it's a caveat to have some distance to it. But I think you really do have to keep your ball in play more than anything here. So that's kind of the way I went about it, whereas it doesn't seem as attackable via distance. So I definitely went more on the plotter side. But I could see it's tough because we've entered no form, no course history. Like you're kind of in the Wild West sometimes in the DP World Tour right now.
Yeah, I looked at this in 2 ways. I think, as you said, about the kind of accuracy side, and that does seem to play a part. It does feel like when we get to like Morocco, Turkey, linking to kind of Kenya and those sorts of places, it does seem to be way more about accuracy than it is kind of distance. You can't, as you said, seemingly can't overpower it. Now, do I expect the scoring to be better than it was when it's really tough on the Challenge Tour a number of years ago? Yes. I think the advancements suggest that's going to be the case anyway, the talent pool, whatever. But I do expect it to be kind of tricky and hard to overpower. And then I've just kind of looked back at just past Turkey performances, right? I do still think that's always relevant part of the world. We've looked at players just, playing well at the China Open, regardless of the course and all those sorts of things. I think we can learn something from last week as a kind of warm up and Bermuda Greens, all those sorts of things that kind of link the two. So I think, like we did last week, I was kind of all about I kind of put a tweet out about it on the weekend about just reverting to kind of winning veterans, when you're not sure about things. I think we do revert to this kind of accuracy type this week, but do lean on that kind of, okay, well, if you were back to form without any hiccups, Atagi didn't miss a beat, right? He had a really good lead in form, took a break, and then just carried on. Suggests you can do that. So yeah, I think the current form now stands up for those that were in form pre and prior to last week's China Open.
It's kind of interesting because when you do get the gaps, you do kind of throw form out. But I can remember thinking back even to the COVID day, a lot of guys stayed in form even from March to starting back up in July when they did, I remember Daniel Berger being the best golfer in the world, and that didn't stop, so there was definitely some interesting things where these guys can hold it through the gaps.
Sean Norris was in fourth, Freddie Short was playing well, was in fifth. Kimsey held his form. Van Driel was playing very well. Big Sid showed some good stuff going into it. So even Lindbergh was steady along, and maybe he's one that's taking the break to fine tune things to make the next step. But generally speaking, the same players play well, and I think we're going to get that most of the season on now. And it is going to be very course. This is a brand new course for everyone, for the most part. I think there's 4 players that might have played in the Challenge Tour, and almost all of them missed the cut, so I don't think you've really learned anything from it. So yeah, accuracy, current form stands from last week and the prior weeks to the China Open. And if you want to look at past Turkey events, definitely worth doing so.
So I ended up landing with question marks at pretty much everybody short on the board. My card does not start till the 60s. I think the one guy that I gave a little bit of credence to relatively to the top of the board is if it's a course that you can, a plus driver with accuracy, obviously is probably the best way you can go about this. Tom McKibben does seem to stand alone as the one who can do that. He drove it great at the Masters, then was 5th in Mexico the next time out. So I was intrigued there. 22s, I'm okay. Just ended up settling the card the way I did. Even short of 40, I didn't have much interest in a lot of the guys here. You?
So I'm full disclosure for everyone. I haven't actually finished my complete card yet, and I've got 2 that I'm really keen on, but there's still room to kind of make changes. And the one I'm really stuck on is Henny du Plessis, talking about that run of form, right, and whether they can hold on to it. The guy was one of the best players on the tour, behind kind of Jarvis, for his last 3 events. He was 3rd in Kenya, 2nd at the South African Open, then 4th last time out at the Joburg. And what's really impressive is he was 3rd going into Sunday in Kenya, 2nd going into Sunday in South Africa, and then 1st going into the final round in Joburg. So he's making that steady progression of going into Sunday with a really good chance. And even before then, 3 straight top 20. So feels really hard to ignore du Plessis at the moment when you think about all those places that he's just played well, despite the fact that he ranks 150th on tour in driving accuracy. It still feels like he should be able to kind of get round here. He's 25th in approach. He's hitting plenty of greens, so he's doing all the right things. Does he get caught out on a tighter track? The recent form suggests no. So I thought the 22-1 about him was pretty fair when you consider those around him.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, he was somebody you've kind of been keen on all year in this spot, and worthy of the outright numbers that he's been priced at.
Yeah.
So, I mean, Chachara kind of went out to 40s after being okay. I think the one that drew attention in the mid range for both of us to at least talk through is Skovolason after finishing fourth at the Zurich Classic with RNP. Obviously, shout out to the Fitzbros too. Like a lot of people, I think you hit it right. You were on them last week. Yep. So, I mean, a lot of people don't give credence to the Zurich Classic, what it is. I love it. I really do. I think it's such a unique event, especially through the lens of that we get to have here in the States of, DraftKings of playing it out and getting to roster 6 teams and having a fight through a made cut. Like that makes it even more intriguing when a lot of people decide to cool off on the week. But like that moment with Alex changing his career, like that is things that you and I love to like root for and kind of see. I mean, it was really neat.
I saw like a couple of like criticisms of it, of like I can't remember exactly what they were, but it was like people being like basically very contradictory. They were like they'd like it in one of the circumstances and not the other. I think, and everyone started talking about, because I think it was just like a live thing. Like everyone was moaning about Brooks was trying to get Chase a card for ages, and then everyone criticised it. And now that Matt has done it for Alex, like it's great. And I was like, it's so different. Like Chase Koepka's not very good at golf by probably his own admission. Now I've seen him actually play some really good golf when he came and played over in the UK, but like Alex Fitzpatrick did a lot. Like I watched a reasonable amount of it. Like he made like 10 birdies to contribute in the 4 balls, and yes, Matt played that amazing bunker shot, and yes, Alex put him in the bunker. But like that's true of any partner, right? Like in that event, like Shane Lowry certainly didn't pick up Brooks enough. I think the reason I went into it betting them was that Alex was going to hold his own. Like that was my kind of big thing about it. Whereas before it was him trying to drag his lifeless body around. Like now it is like he's going to play his part. And to be fair, that probably wasn't true last year either. He probably was playing his part last year as well. But I think really exciting. Like you saw the reactions of Matt Wallace and Dan Brown when Alex came off. They've got another kind of English PGA Tour player now. I think he's deserved it. I think he played his part in it. And Matt Fitzpatrick's, he is definitively the 3rd best player in the world now, right? He's won like 3 of his like 5 events, whatever it is, and his last 2 playoff wins have been over Scheffler and Rory. So no matter what that guy does now, like he's really kind of upped his game. So yeah, definitely what we love about the game. And I mean, look, biased because I've had a winning bet on it, for the first time in a few years, but it is interesting. I think it definitely is way more interesting than it gets credit for. I wish more players took it more seriously, and that's probably
if it was a signature event, man, it would be electric.
Like imagine if it was like, like who's going to play with Sheffield, like almost like a draft type thing. There's definitely things they could do with it, right? Like they have to pick a name out of a hat, or like Scheffler has to go with the 64th ranked person, whatever it might be. Like they can definitely make a go of it. There's more to it. Oh, I also had a thought about like, isn't the Zurich, like, wasn't it quite a cool event before? Like, I like the golf course, and it's probably a shame that we don't see the guys to have a chance to win there individually either. So there's a couple of different lines of thinking on it, but it's a cool spot.
Yeah, and so for Skovolason, I mean, it's a huge week. T4, gets with RNP. They both played really, really good. The only caveat I have with Skovolason is I think there's got to be a little bit of risk he doesn't play if we can get confirmation he's going to get into the Myrtle Beach Classic from that top 10. I just never know with those type of things right now in the state of the game. But if we can get confirmation on that, if he's not, then he's going to Turkey to play. And he might either way, but he might have to go Turkey back to Myrtle Beach in a 2-week span, which he also did that because I actually remember betting on him at the ISCO. So he went like Europe to ISCO to the Open Championship in a 3-week time period. So he's 26. You don't put it past a lot of these guys just to play when they get to play. But I think 45s. There's some juice in the number. I'm okay waiting to start my card for, which is funny to say. Like ripe and waiting for Francesco Molinari at 61-1 at the ripe age of 43 years old. A little bit of resurgence out of Frankie, right? I mean, after being virtually irrelevant for what? Since 2022?
Yeah.
Yeah, so since 2022, basically, I mean, even probably before that, I mean, you didn't have a top five. You have to date all the way at 1 in 23. You'd have to date all the way back to, pre-COVID, basically, to find another one. And then this year, just, really hot. Like, I mean, 5 events, 3 of them top 10s. Hero Dubai, he was a first-round leader, I believe. First-round leader, solo 65 there. Hero Indian Open, T6, steady all the way through, 72, 72, 71, 70. That's going to make it happen at DLF. And then you put it into play with his iron play, which is showing a little bit vintage of Molinari, on top of, really good accuracy like he's been. Like, this was the mold of Frankie historically. Mm-hmm. Now the number probably gets a little bit crashed more when you have the name of how good of a player he was on the European Tour and PGA Tour. But I'm really comfortable with Frankie at this course specifically, and the way he's showing, still having a little bit to chew on from a number standpoint at 61 outright.
Yeah, and I think that one of the things I kind of noticed in a couple of times we've put Molinari up this season is that you've just got to come to terms with the fact that he could be really, really good again and never be what he was for that couple of year period, right? Like, he's not going to be the guy that absolutely, walks away with the Open Championship, looks like he's going to win the Masters, wins a couple of big PGA Tour events. That's probably not him anymore. Do I think he can still go and win a PGA Tour event at some point? Probably, like the way he's kind of getting his game back on track. But it's still fine for none of that to happen and for him to still just be a very good DP World Tour player again. And that's what he always was meant to be, and that's always what he really was outside that couple of year stretch, right? So if he can get back to his pre-amazing major winning run, Ryder Cups, specials, etc., and is just who he was before, that's plenty good enough to win this tournament. And he would have been 28, 33-1 every week then, right? So the fact that he's kind of 60-1, 61-1 showing this kind of form, I think that's fine. It's just people are so used to at the moment seeing like 300-1, 200-1, 100-1, whatever it might be. You do have to readjust. You have to readjust for what's happening, and he's one of the better players again now.
Yeah, 100%. And these Molinaris, they care, man. I mean, the way that Dodo's going about things, like deep into their careers, these guys are, showing, just passion in life, and it's fun to see. So I'm there before I go into triple digits. So I'll let you take the wheel from basically under 100-1 here.
Yeah, so I'm going to go with Antoine Rosner, Sky. And I think we talked about this, like we both looked at the Joburg Open. I think you were glad that I went with him because I didn't want to leave him at the preview altogether. And he missed the cut. But he shot 73 in round 1, bounced back really nicely with a 68, just wasn't quite good enough. And then last week he was 5th going into the final round of China and finished 8th. Before that, 24th in the SA Open, 14th in Kenya where he was inside the top 10 for the second and third round, 9th in Qatar where he had a really good weekend, 10th for the Dubai Invitational where he was inside the top 5 for the first 2 rounds. He is definitively back to being what he is on the DP World Tour, which is a very solid player amongst the best, amongst the better ball strikers. I don't really have any concerns. Surprised he didn't play in Turkey all that much, Rosner, if at all, really. But his iron play, for the stats that are slightly rogue, but what we've got in front of us, 5th, 2nd, and 9th in his last 4 made cuts in terms of strokes gain approach, and that won't be too far from the truth. So the way Rosner's hitting the ball, the elevation we give him as a player that's right at the top of the DP World Tour and on a fringe of the PGA, I think 51-1 about Rosner, when no one's got an advantage in terms of course form, feels like a really good number. Yeah.
And again, just kind of siding with a number of a player who you trust when he's there, for sure. Like, it's Otegi-esque in that way. Anybody else south? I mean, we talked Freddie Schott a little bit, who kind of has that distance and accuracy going for him both.
Yeah, Schott was the next one for me to really think through and probably will be on my card at this point. 82-1 in the States. Hit the ball really nicely last week. Another one that's just keeping that form up. I mean, like you could forgive Shot for winning in Bahrain, really like not losing his head, but like just winning that first DP World Tour event. It's almost gifted to him, right? So maybe just reacting quite poorly. He did miss the cut in Kenya on his next start 3 weeks later. Then got to the SA Open, was a bit slow there, but shot 63 in the final round to climb up into the top 15. Missed the cut at the Hainan, but then bounced back really nicely at the Indian Open, where he was inside the top 5 for the first 3 rounds. Shot an 80 on Sunday to finish 20th. And had he have struggled in China last week after shooting at 80, they'd gone, like the bubbles kind of burst a little bit. But to finish, 5th again last week and to hit the ball really nicely, I think we're just looking at a player that's just, elevated his game very quickly and is taking advantage of this good run. And as you said, he blends that kind of, accuracy and distance standpoint as well. Maybe not the, the most prolific kind of greens and regulation player. If you're looking at kind of more traditional stats and the approach play is only marginally gaining, but driving wise, he's kind of, one of the better ones on tour, right? So the fact that he's kind of got that going for him, the fact that he's got his kind of current form and doing it is really impressive. So maybe would like him a little bit more accurate, but as a big driver of the ball that can seem to club down when it matters, I think he's really eye-catching.
Yeah, well, for sure. And like he seems to maybe have that ceiling that he could be leading, just separating so much with the off the tee that the rest can kind of come in. So I'm going to go opposite in regards to the distance factor, but somebody that I trust putting it in play from a plotting standpoint and just showing similar kind of form and progressiveness is Darius Van Driel, right? You just line Darius Van Driel up at a course that rewards accuracy that, back-to-back weeks. China was kind of that way. We thought T8, Hero Indian Open, T18 for him. And then you just kind of look at some of and this is, again, where we get into a little bit of the Wild West of stats on how these guys are kind of at least leading themselves into, Van Driel's approach numbers haven't been up to par of what you'd expect it to. But I think from a standpoint of just all around game, it seems to be clicking. And that's all you can really ask for when you're not 100% confident into the stats. If you looked at his all around, he was second in accuracy, 28th in greens and regulation, 11th in scrambling last week. Just, found himself steady at a putting well. I think those kind of caveats for him at a course that is going to be difficult will test that short game too. I kind of like that. He had that 10th at the Hero Dubai, which was kind of a big time event for him. I think of him more of that Magical Kenya Open, type of play for the style of course. So the distance is not in his favor, but he did it at a bigger course earlier this year. So I think that's for him and just lead in now. It's 5 made cuts in a row, 100-1. I just think if that's the course that plays out, he's worthy, at least from his profile standpoint.
Yeah, just if you're looking for, a lot of people are going with Nathan Kimsey this week, and I can see why. If you're looking for a safe set of hands off the tee and plods round, then he fits that profile and he's the better price version of someone in that mold, right? That's probably what you've got to kind of look at down in these kind of triple digits now, is that we've talked about the kind of high end mid-range players, who's the person who's going to kind of keep it in play off the tee and really give yourself a chance of going at these greens, and Van Driel certainly amongst those.
All right, I'll go next. Again, I'm still deep into here for me. Yeah. Next one up, let me just double check if I go down the order. I think he's out number-wise a little bit. And I thought you might be on this one, and maybe even after we talk it out. But, okay, so in the state of, what you have of DP World Tour players, not many of them get to play on the PGA Tour, in some of these legitimate events, big time, not big time, but run-of-the-mill PGA Tour events. Of this field, north of 100-1, I'm not sure any player was getting these starts outside of Paul Waring, right? Paul Waring still has his medical exemption, I believe, on the PGA Tour after his injury. So he played 5 times on the PGA Tour so far this year after opening on the European Tour. Miscut. And then at the Houston Open, Waring, I believe he was the first round leader. After the first round, 63 in the first round was solo lead there. Heading into Sunday, Paul Waring was T7 at a PGA Tour event not that long ago, And then you look at the Valero, a T30 for him there, where I think, at the halfway point, was kind of out of it. I think he was 61st, so just got it on the number, rallied for a T30 over the weekend. Like, that type of recent form doesn't really exist for any player at 125-1 on the European Tour. Like, that's just not part of it. Is there things to like about Paul Waring as a player for this outside of recent form? I mean, his driving numbers have been good this year. Distance and accuracy at the Houston Open was really good. I mean, you kind of rule out 2025 via injury, and you go back to what he was in 2024, which was a dang good player, right? Wins in Abu Dhabi, third in China. I have seen a couple comps. If we look at trying to think of other plays for him, I mean, Qatar required, some of that driving skill. I mean, just really good ball striking for him across the board. So when he was back in 24, so if you get almost like I'm asking Waring to revert like Molinari was reverting, but there's just questions to me, like enough to bite off at 125 with the PGA Tour form in the last two events. That's really all I'm kind of at least banking on. If he was 60-1, I'm not betting it, right? But 125, like acting like he hasn't played in forever when he kind of has,
Yeah, and I think as well, like to that point, like pretty solid in Turkey over the years, like 3 or 4 top 25s. I know, generally speaking, they're kind of reduced fields, so top 25s maybe more like a top 30, 40, but like he's steadily kind of making grounds there. And to your point, like he can impress on the PGA Tour. What's he going to do over here? Like we say this all the time, that we probably forget about players and then go a bit like Manacero, right? Last one, I know he missed the cut, but like we're all so keen on him because he was coming back, playing well again after extended period not being very good on the PGA Tour. We're talking about Waring, who's actually okay. Well, he's played well on the PGA Tour. He's just been injured for a year. Like that's the kind of difference with it. Kind of surprising that he's maybe even playing. To be quite honest with you, like if he can get starts on the PGA Tour, spot starts, why is he not kind of doing it over there? It probably says what you need to know about him and how committed he is to kind of going and making a run at this event. So yeah, I think that the price is pretty good on Waring. Certainly fits the kind of old man veteran thing that I like to do. So yeah, I like it.
Perfect. Okay, so I got a trio more, so I'll pass to you.
Afid Barnrat. We talked about Kiradech Afid Barnrat last week. I said that the number wasn't really that appealing, despite the fact that he played well in China so often. He finished 13th. So I kind of feel vindicated. I didn't bet him. It's not like he kind of posted an each way, but he did shoot 2 rounds of 66. His worst round was 72. You then look at kind of in Japan, he played okay at 68 and 69. When you look at the Indian Open, he played okay for a couple of rounds, just had a really poor Sunday. So he's been on and off, generally speaking, over the last few events, right? And then you just look at his kind of form in Turkey, and he's got a third and a sixth at the Turkish Airlines Open. I just think that's really encouraging. I know it's a different course. I know it's a different event. But if anything, right, being a 54-hole leader in the Turkish Airlines Open a few years ago versus now is a far bigger achievement, depending, like we were talking about, like Rose and Hatton and Fleetwood and all those types of players playing in this, Molinari when he was, better. Those were his kind of challenges. And this week we're talking about kind of Eora, Lindell and co at the top. So Hillier. So I think with the pedigree you're getting with someone like Afid Barnrat, and also when I think about Afid Barnrat, I think about like how volatile he is, and you don't really know what's coming next type of thing. But one of the things that we can credit him for this year is the fact that he's kind of 21st in driving accuracy. He loves, I think he actually plays better when he's got that kind of frame of like, okay, I can't hit it here, right? And I think, I've spoken to Ted Scott about that with Bubba, right? Like he was so much better when he was in the desert because there's a very clear line between fairway and desert, and there's a very clear line between pine straw and fairway Augusta, or pine straw and rough. So it might be that Afid Barnrat just needs to be focused. That having those big wide fairways just don't help him, and he just somehow misses those. Whereas when he's he's kind of got a channel that he's good. And I just think 130 is one. I think it's about that price, right? This week for FBarm, right? I just think, 135 to 1. I just think that's big enough in the grand scheme of things of who we've got this week.
Yeah, definitely intrigued. Has been on our radars, I feel like, for the entire season with the 18-hole pops that he's doing. So pair of 66s is something that caught my eye last week. But if I look at the real eye catcher right next to him in the odds board, it doesn't take much for me to have to go back to Guido Migliozzi. It just doesn't take much, Tom, because historically, and we're in a new era, right? We're in a new era, and we're also in a new era. The way I bet him, I've done my time. I've sat on the sidelines and let it fester. But you get Guido to show up on a leaderboard. Forever, it was okay. He's 40 to 1 the next week. That's how it always was, And I think it was in Kenya earlier this year, just with some. I think it was not that short, but definitely after he at least had a mini pop. You start at least get some recognition overall on him, and I'm sure he will be tipped a decent amount this week. T13 in China. I mean, pretty much the only time he's really shown relevance this year was Qatar in the opening round. I think he was 10th after the opening round. And I was like, that's all I needed for the Magic Kenya Open, where he misses the cut, of course, there. I think it was on the number 70-67 for him there. But then, that T13 irons were pretty good, especially good in the middle rounds for him last week. So again, this is just profile standpoint. I trust, almost like you trust Adrian when you are up there, you are going to get just complete contention and winning ability on the front page of the leaderboard from Guido. I mean, he won, what was it, back in 24 was the last one, right? The KLM for him. I just think that ceiling hasn't left Guido yet. I'm not willing to admit it if it has. But, if we can get good iron play and I would say above average off the tee play, everything else has begun to graduate into a better side of things, really good around the green. There are some paths where these greens are going to be really hard to hold. There's literally a lot of elevation in them that around the green game, probably when the Challenge Tour was here, that's kind of what got them, was these greens seem to be tricky. So that could be something that's big for him. So yeah, I'm not going to question it when it's 130 to 1,
Yeah, I think, look, the obvious concern with Migliozzi is is he going to be accurate enough, right? And that's the case for everybody, right? I don't think there's any. I mean, Nathan Kimsey, right? He's very accurate off the tee, very accurate with his irons, and if he wins this week, and I haven't bet him, and full disclosure, I might still do that. I might feel a little bit stupid, but that there is that prototypical fit, and then there's these players that you think can adapt. Afibara, Migliozzi, they've both done it. They've both won a tight golf course, or at least contended at tight golf courses in Afibara's case. They do it, and the stats might not suggest they're going to, but you're not going to get it line up every week where it's okay, well, this guy's really good at driving accuracy and greens regulation. He's going to do it. It just doesn't work like that. So, I think going for and again, to your point as well, I'm not ready to give up on it leaving Migliozzi yet. There's so many people that have given up on Molinari, so many people have given up on Wiesberger, right? And we're talking about, Wiesberger winning last week, Molinari being probably on quite a lot of cards this week. So, I think, Migliozzi is less than 30 years old. We should probably just be fine that he's shown plenty of upside. He's achieved more than some people have achieved by the time he gets 40 and has time. So, I like it.
All right. So, I might have 3 more still. I think I'm adding another guy because I'm just debating between splitting hairs. So I can keep rolling. You can. Why don't I talk about these two guys in duo? I'll talk about them because I can't really separate them. And if my card's starting at 60 to 1, I can bet 7 golfers. That's literally no sweat when I'm debating between 2 north of triple digits here. And we pretty much have had them looped together, in my opinion, since Q School. And I'm going to pull up the Q School scores here as we go. But it's Davis Bryant and Daniel Rodriguez.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I don't want to say identical type of paths for what we've kind of seen, but basically did think of them as the same golfer. Got through Q school after. For Bryant, his was some pops here and there after getting some status there. And then for Rodriguez, I remember Brad talking about him having a really strong amateur profile. So guys that we looked at that were more accurate, not the world beaters via power for them, and then have shown some pops. And what have they done really out of the gates? Both of them so far with a little bit more confirmed status have not been consistent, but have had multiple pops. Rodriguez out of the gates, T12 in Australia, T6 at Henan, 16th last week. Davis Bryant, where have we seen kind of the similar stuff for him? Not consistent, but 14th, 12th in Australia, second at a tight Kenya Open, 19th at the China Open. Doesn't tell the full story for Bryant. I believe he was, at the halfway point. I guess he was T8, heading into last week. Bryant also opened low in India prior to that with the Hero Indian Open. I believe he was top 10 for the first round. So I'm just viewing them very, very similar. And I don't think it's worth having to pick between one or the other at this odds range when they're virtually the same profile to me and have that pedigree. I mean, Bryant was unbelievable on mini tours here. So I think we can bet them both and be good with it at long odds.
Do we not make a third man in this audience and just had Jordan Gumberg?
Well, Gumberg hasn't. I guess he won. I guess I'll say he hasn't had the form. But he just won for you, right?
He had the one pop, and I know it's not been as steady, right? I know that sometimes one finish kind of blurs things, but he was okay the week after winning. In India, again, he didn't do enough to contend, but he was 34th. He was 28th in Joburg, where he was 9th at halfway. When he was 42nd in Kenya, he opened and closed with a 66. And look, I'd really like for him to have made the cut last week, but the guy's third in driving accuracy and third in greens regulation. Like, if we're looking for just that process, he's going to keep it out of trouble. He fits, and he's 225 to 1, and he's already won this season. Because I agree. I think Bryant and Rodriguez both great fits, both good bets this week. But he trumps he's better positioned than Kimsey is from a statistical standpoint. Just Kimsey's very consistent. It's obviously like the whole package versus just being able to nudge it round. But that's why one of them's 225 to 1, one of them's 25 to 1.
Yeah, I mean, the one difference is Jordan Gumberg has ripped my heart out before, and the other two haven't, So I tend not to bet him because of that Robin Williams defeat.
I feel like you got to let that one go.
I mean, I let Rosner's putt in Qatar go from that 70-footer he beat Guido with. So
I had a little bit of interest, and not the same, I guess, player, but I was interested a little bit in Maximilian Steinle. I think he popped on quite a few cards recently, didn't he? And he's been solid, right? He's 34th in Kenya, 15th in Joburg, where he led after round 1, 34th again at the Indian Open, 25th again last week. It's a really steady golf there. I just don't really know enough about him to be like, yes, this is.
He was RB's favorite graduate, right? I think he was Baroff's number 1.
Yeah, and he's reasonably accurate off the tee. Doesn't hit a ton of greens by memory. Or the other way around. He's either accurate off the tee and good at greens or whatever. He's not good at both, is the answer. He's not good at driving accuracy. He's 115th on tour, which surprises me. But I just think, again, just a really solid player that's sitting there at 260 to 1 in a field that we have so many doubts over. It's an interesting.
I still think now is the time of year that we just got to fire. We just got to fire on the long shots. I mean, I guess it's the best time on the European Tour. I say that after we just have the favorites just keep winning and winning. But I'm going to keep firing for places at least.
We did skip over someone that I was very close to betting.
Oh yeah,
do it, and that was my fault. I completely forgot. Eddie Pepperell. He is 64th in greens regulations, but the thing that was holding Pepperell back for so long was the terrible driving. Right, he's inside the top 30 for driving accuracy. If you look at his kind of form in Turkey, he's got a 6th and a 10th to his name. If you look at his recent form, we're seeing pops. Quite a lot of them. Right, like he was 18th on the Sunshine Tour, Then he was 5th at the South African Open, really good final round, 28th at the Joburg, and then 9th last time out at the Hainan Classic. It does feel like Eddie Pepperell is, dare I say it, almost back. And we're talking about a triple-digit golfer who's got 2 top 10s in the country. I do think that country form is really important, even if the courses are not entirely the same. Greens, weather, all those sorts of things that you're kind of used to. I know, again, like the Turkish Airlines Open used to be played in November, right? So you're not the same weather, but you get my drift that kind of like the same part of the world kind of gives the same sort of vibes to people. And, this is somewhere they've come back to twice and finish inside the top 10. So I would imagine Pepperell finds my betting card somehow this week.
Yeah. I mean, when that style of course, he definitely at least came to mind for me. So I'll close this out with one final one. I'll give a shout out to all of our audio listeners. You can find us on Daily Fantasy Sports, Picks and Bets, The Mix. I'll make sure the audio gets up. I think last week we were YouTube only, so I'll follow up to make sure we have the podcast platform, but you can make sure you find us there, rate, review, subscribe, the YouTube Mayo Media Network for us too. Super thankful for Pat and the team that give us a lot of love doing this, and all the listeners too. We got some welcome backs. That was really nice. So again, schedule for us, I think the way it's going to go is what Tom and I have kind of talked about. We have this, then we have next week's Catalunya Championship, from the PGA to the U.S. Open, and maybe all the way leading into July. There's just some travel and different things on the bucket on my end where kind of a weekly show is just probably not realistic for us. So I would say we're probably back in full swing, hopefully near July, depending on schedules. So we'll run our way to the PGA Championship for a little bit of hiatus midsummer. And then as we ramp up some of the bigger DP World Tour events, hopefully you'll be getting us back together as a duo for those. And that's kind of just life with two youngins here. Tom on the move. I know he's traveling a little bit too, coming up to the States here. So just wanted to make sure we were out in front of that for you guys too. But super appreciative again. And we're always available. You can find me on Twitter at SkyhookDFS, Tom at TomJacobs93. Tweet, message, DM us, whatever, comment on YouTube. Like, we're here. We love to interact. So thankful of that from you guys. Last bet, Quim Vidal, Vidal. I'm not sure I've heard of anybody with the first name of Quim before, but down to 400 to 1, back-to-back top 20s for him. If you looked at him, graduated from the Hotel Planner Tour, DP World Tour, winner in Delhi last year. Had kind of played, I think, 3 years there after turning pro. Little decent on the Alps Tour in lead up. But Vidal, I just think as of late, 2 events in a row that just have been eye-catching to me at the number. So you can see his approach for 3 straight events is inside the top 30 for him. And then from just the standpoint of how he has played, I mean, it wasn't great, in the Hainan, but the 13th at the Indian Open, he was 7th at the halfway point. And then last week, he was just steady top 20 the entire time. So you're getting good iron play and just steadiness for 8 rounds in a row, basically, on courses that have rewarded the skill set that I'm going to be betting into this week at 400 to 1. That's kind of my recipe for landing on him with that. So probably there with a top 10 for him will be the last round out of my card.
Yeah. No, I mean, no extra notes on Quim other than fantastic name. Vidal always sounds good. So yeah, I think makes perfect sense. It is definitely that time of year that he's trying to take those long shots. I think surprised Ashton Wu was still available at 380 to 1 after playing well again last week. Obviously in a kind of title defence. I thought there might be some temptations to go to Cam Adam, but probably not the right fit.
I need just a little bit of life on the iron play and I'll be back.
Yeah, I think he's going to be back soon. And I keep looking at Anthony Quayle. I think we backed him at the start of the year, and
he was good last week.
Yeah, but not any of those strong enough to kind of make the card. I think I'm pretty settled now after kind of talking this through with you of who we're going with. So happy to review.
Okay, yep, let's run down it then.
Yep. So I'm going to kick things off with Antoine Rosner. He's coming in at best price of 51 to 1. Eddie Pepperell available at 100 to 1. Kiradech Afib Amrat 135 to 1. And then it's just a case of whether I really make the decision on Henny du Plessis or not. So he's the one from the top that I'm very interested in.
Perfect. All right. I am going to go with Francesco Molinari. Best price still is 65 to 1. Darius Van Driel, 100 to 1. Paul Waring is 125 to 1. Davis Bryant, 135. Daniel Rodriguez, 155 to 1. Guido Migliazzi is 125 as well. And then Quim Vidal is 380 at the moment. So we'll get a top 10 with those guys too. So full of long shots for the card this week. Appreciate you as always, Tom. And then, like I said, we'll catch you next week for Catalunya before we have a little bit of a break there on the show. But good luck, everybody, and we'll talk to you next week.
Thanks, guys.